Hello everybody, this is Anuj Tripathi and you are watching the Review Universe aka TRU podcast. In this podcast we have conversation with authors regarding their book, their journey and the inspiration behind their book. So today on the podcast we are joined by Veejay Madhavan, a business strategist, transformation leader and the author of Clarity Demands Collateral. What are you willing to lose to live in a truth? With 26 years of experience in leadership, business transformation, and generational alignment, Vijay works at the intersection of clarity, AI, and human potential. But in this book, he steps into more personal and philosophical space. Clarity Demands Collateral is not a motivational manual, it is a productivity guide. It is piercing meditation on the real cost of truth, the silence, the solitude, the sacrifice, and sometimes the burning of the bridges that comes with living in alignment. So today we will explore why divides before it connects, why the truth can cost us comfort, and what it really means to stand alone and stay whole. So, sir, welcome to the show.
Hi, Anuj, pleasure to be here.
Okay, so you have spent decades in business transformation and leadership. Okay, so what made you write a book that feels deeply introspective and almost poetic?
Well, I was a corporate executive for 26 years, and I stepped away from corporate life in 2022 to
Yep.
branch out on my own. I've held leadership positions for almost 16 years, uh, left as a chief executive officer and a board member. And one of the things that you realize once you leave the corporate world and start a business on your own is your past history receives no deference. So nobody does really care about what you've done before. They care about what you do.
Yep.
And as an entrepreneur, most entrepreneurs face this, right? We start out with a lot of enthusiasm. We go out and we do a lot of things, trying to repeat some of the patterns of the past, thinking that was the success model. But you're quickly brought down to earth. And in that process, you begin to understand that your true value was not the positions you held in the past, not only relating to your career, but also as a friend, a son, as a father, as a partner, or even as a mentor. So, in that context, that led me to a personal introspection of what I was doing
Yep.
and where I was going. Right, the objective was always to pursue my passions, but was I doing it with honesty, with truth, and most of all, was I aligned to what I said I was doing through my actions and my thinking? So that led me to a very personal journey. And I felt that from that personal journey, I have to share this so that people who are in my situation or planning to make significant pivots in their life understand that the pivot itself is can be easily spoken about, but the actual process can entail a lot of discomfort, a lot of happiness, and also a lot of sadness. So, uh, unlike most successful CEOs who would write autobiographies about their leadership journey,
Yep.
which I believe there are plenty out there, and I don't consider myself as someone who needs to share my journey. I think our journeys as CEOs are somewhat overlapping in many contexts, right? But I wanted to tell a wider group of audience that this journey is meant for everyone, but you must be absolutely ready when you start it because it was never going to be easy. Hence, writing the book in such succinct context, because you can see it's less than 100 pages long, but it is filled with a lot of questions that help you to introspect. And in putting those questions forward, I talk about my own personal experiences in between. My intention is not to provide a solution. My intention is only to hold up a mirror so that other people can use and find themselves.
Got it. Okay, so the title itself is powerful. Clarity demands collateral. So when did you first realize that clarity comes at a cost? Like,
Well, it was through my personal journey, Anuj. I did have something of a, I would say, every person hits a block, a mental block. And so I hit a mental block sometime in early of 2025. And it took me a while to realize who I was becoming, and that sort of was a very painful process because there were certain relationships, friendships I had to walk away from. Some that were embedded for many years, right? Decades, to be honest. There was a different way of working. There was a different way of thinking. A new routine needed to be set up. Uh, I had to shift my perceptions around life, around spirituality, around roles and responsibilities, around my own journey forward. Right. And one of the questions that I finally found is if I have to live for what I believed in and what I'm pursuing right now, not just through my books, but through my work, certain things needed to be given up.
okay,
And that led me to that process of saying, well, there is the collateral. And as you can see from the book cover, is the burn mark of the old being burnt,
yep,
and the new cover being formed underneath. And you can see it's a burn. It is not a change of clothes. It is a burn. You have to painfully let go of a number of things that you thought about or did in the past. And that comes at a cost, financial costs, psychological cost, relationships, emotions. So I was, I would say I was fortunate to have gone through that very quickly because I'm sure there are a number of people out there who've been trying this for years. And I was fortunate to actually discover that in a matter of months.
got it. Okay, so the book asks, what are you willing to lose to live in a truth? So what inspired this central question to be in the title itself?
Because I think every collateral comes at a cost, right? And we don't realize this. So let's assume we went to take a business loan. We put up our property or our assets.
Yep,
That is the cost of the you know
the loan.
uh, the loan. All right, that you're acquiring or you're applying for. But there's something you're going to burn because now you've become indebted to a new party called the financial institution. And they will not give you this loan for free. They'll give you at exorbitant interest rates. They have a lot of conditions that you need to fulfill. They actually have right of possession to your land, to your asset. And that is a truth that that most people don't realize. You've worked hard to create that asset only to hand it over to somebody else. And it's actually at their liberty and at their discretion to take it away from you any point in time. Now, little do we realize that we have handed over years of hard work to somebody in an instant. But the truth is that could disappear tomorrow. And are you willing to take the emotions and the pain of building something with your own bare hands and putting it into the hand of another who has absolutely no emotional attachment to what you've worked for? It's an interesting perspective.
Definitely,
But yeah,
I can feel myself as well. Like I have been building this thing like since 3 years as of now, and whatever you are saying, it is like hitting me again and again. Like someday I have to give all these things to somebody else.
yes. And if it's someone that you know and you've trained, it's different. But when you someone you don't know and it's out of a necessity, you do it. You are going to pay a huge price for it. You know the risk, but knowing the risk and being ready psychologically and being prepared for it are two different things.
So you say clarity often demands betrayal, betrayal
Mm.
of comfort, roles, or expectations.
Yeah.
So can you explain what betrayal really means?
I mean, it's not, a betrayal can come in many forms, right? And it's not a bad betrayal. It is by saying yes to something, you're going to say no to something else. In
Yep,
fact, you have to say no to something else before you can say yes to something.
exactly.
And not everybody who hears the no is going to accept the reason for your no. It is going to be perceived as deception. It is going to be perceived as a breaking of promises. It is going to be perceived as desertion. It is going to be perceived in many ways. There are many adjectives that you can use. But because you've placed yourself as the utmost priority, you're saying no to a lot of things, even routines, right? And even your past. I have met a lot of leaders who will always tell me, I used to be this, I used to be that, I used to be this. Even that you have to let go. And that is a betrayal of your past. You betray that past to become a new leader of the future, of the present, right? So you cannot go in and tell the person, I used to be, in the industry of this industry, XYZ industry for 35 years. So
That doesn't matter.
that doesn't matter. So even giving up the thought of you always mentioning it is a betrayal to yourself because you say, well, I worked hard for that. But is that relevant? Is that aligned to who you are becoming and where you want to go? Sometimes you have to betray that fact. And when other people say, "Oh, Veejay used to be a CEO of a company and very successful," I say, "Well, that is the past. My focus is here, and that past doesn't define who I am today." So, when you say that to a person who has just complimented you, they feel betrayed. They feel upset because you've just said no to them or to that comment and redefined it and restated your present position, which is totally different. So betrayals will come. It could be betrayal as a son, betrayal as a brother, betrayal as a husband, betrayal as a father, right? I mean, there are people who move from parenthood to becoming an ascetic, a yogi. They give up family life, right?
Yep.
And what would their family think? Betrayal. But to them, it's what they've just placed themselves in their path ahead of everything else. And so the actions sometimes are perceived as betrayal. So you must be ready to hear this perception, to know that sometimes you have to betray the past or certain things about you which you've known for decades to become that new person you look forward to becoming.
Got it. Okay, so like, do you believe most people avoid clarity because they subconsciously know the cost?
No, they don't. There are two parts to this, Anuj, and I will answer them one at a time. First is the perception of clarity. And you see this in a lot of coaching, management, consulting. You talk to people. Oh, we are very clear where we want to go, right? But when you ask them, you were clear before this, where have you really moved? They will give you another roundabout. So, it was because, the environment, the market was like this, the global economy was like that. But on our actions, we knew where we wanted to go. But my third follow-up question is, you are not the only one who faced the same challenges. Every other company did. So are you sure you were clear in your head, but not everywhere else? You weren't clear in your actions. You weren't clear in your words, in your communication. You weren't clear in setting the tone from the top. There are many aspects. So perception of clarity is sometimes subjective or biased to your personal situation because there is a fear that failure is not acceptable. And being performative in front of the board, in front of the investors, in front of friends, family members is the most important thing. Right? So that's the first one. Second is the failure to understand that clarity goes beyond just one single word. And there are many moving, interdependent factors to it. And in the book, I cover those 5 factors, right? Your intention. And everybody is very good with intention. Then you have your energy, you know. And this too, actually, you start very well. At the beginning of the year, everybody sets resolutions,
Yeah,
or very, but after 3 weeks, the behavior is going wayward. They're overly, they don't feel internally, they don't feel connected to that resolution, right? And they're overly obsessed with the outcome and the process. So weight loss is a classic example, and everybody wants to lose weight. I myself am sitting here in front of you, Anuj, having lost 15 kilos.
great.
That was a matter of 3 months, which is very
Yep,
fast.
definitely.
But I didn't set out, and this was never a goal, but it was on reflection that I realized how important clarity was. My objective at that time was just to eat healthy and stay healthy. That's all I was, aiming for. So cut down sugar, started walking, and I only walked 20 minutes 2 times a day, right? Did some static exercises, played my occasional golf, ate more protein, nuts, unsalt, remove salt from from most of my diet. I just had this, and over time, that's how I've become now, right? So I prefer fish to anything now, and vegetables. I've stayed away from other forms of meat. I don't eat fast food unless it's the last choice. If I can never see me near fast food. But over that process of building the new habit to stay healthy, and because I believed in it, I was focusing on the process, I lost 15 kilos. Most people will say, I want to lose weight. They go to the gym, they go to this. It's all great. Buy a gym membership, they're working out, but they are not looking up after themselves mentally, not enough sleep, not enough hydration, and still eat all the junk food that they want to eat. So your behavior, and then you focus on standing on the weighing scale every time you finish gym. Well, I did not know I had lost weight because I was working a lot from home and just running my errands. I was hardly speaking to anybody. At that time, I was re-pivoting myself. It was only when I was having to go for a board meeting and I took out my suit and I put on my pants and I realized that I've just lost so much weight. It was only after 9 weeks that when I stood on the scale, I realized I had lost more than 12 kilos. So I was not focused on the outcome. I was focused on the process. So here is a classic example.
So it is just that if you change the perspective, the cost is not there.
Cost is not there. So that's why clarity is often misunderstood. As long as you're clear in the head, everything is a-okay. It's not. It's not just the head, right? It's in your language. It's in your behavior. It's the way you show up, right? If you walk into a room and everybody is worried about you, that is the energy you're emitting,
Got it.
right? You don't realize it, but around you, you will emit that energy just by your behavior, your body language, the words you use, the way you sit, right? The way you look at people. So, as a leader, is your energy visible and felt? Absolutely, and for every minute. It's just that we live in a world where it's so hierarchical, except for Gen Zs who I work with,
Yep.
who have a lot of courage to come up and say, I feel, I feel you are, I feel you're aggressive, or you are, you are condescending. Most people will just keep their mouth shut and just accept things and say, why drop the board? Why make a comment about the boss? But does it help you improve your workplace? Not
Yep.
necessarily. And that is the world we live in. It's become so performative. All about performance, right? And we talk about authentic leadership, authenticity in your work, authenticity in your life. All these are grand concepts which only can come to life when you've decided what you're first willing to say no to in order to become authentic. And that's something that I would say with the people I've worked with, 9 out of 10 don't do it.
Got it. Okay, so like work extensively on generational alignment and AI in the workplace. So how
Mm.
does clarity show up in leadership today? Like from your perspective?
Well, when I talk about Gen Zs, and one of the inspirations uh, about the subject, right? I'm a Gen X myself.
Yep.
First of all, I have a Gen Z daughter. She's in her teenage years.
I'm
I have
also a
worked
Gen
with,
Z.
yeah, you're a Gen Z, is very obvious. I have worked with Gen Zs from 2017, my first batch. I had worked with millennials before. And in my role as a CXO, I was working with a lot of Gen Zs. And in fact, that was the first time I actually set up a Facebook account. I was never a big believer of Facebook. I thought it was rubbish, right? Why are people writing stuff which nobody wants to read? That was my perception. But when I started working with Zoomers, I realized one thing that they will respond very well if you communicate through the medium that they engage. So I set up my Facebook in 2017. I started talking to them. And I also realized that rather than talk about myself, I was talking about them, right? I was talking about the work I did with them. And I understood one thing that if you talk to a lot of people, Gen Z is not say, strawberry generation. No, no resilience, uh, entitled, privileged, you know, don't no respect for elders. I mean, the labels, right? And little do these people realize that when they were younger, they had their labels too.
Exactly.
And also they don't realize this, particularly people of my generation. The Zoomers are mainly our kids right now. We have set them up like that. We want to give them the opportunities. So we cushion them from every fall. We don't allow them to land and wake up from the pain. We cushioned it. We created the soft landings. But then the reality of life and work is very different from the soft landings we created. So partially we are at fault for how this current generation has turned out. But there's so many things in this current generation that people fail to recognize. So the generational integration is to bring those differences into the open and help people appreciate that actually we complement each other. See? So my knowledge of social media came across because of the Zoomers, and then my knowledge of even AI came because of the dangers of it and how Zoomers were using it, thinking they knew it, but actually is a lot more. Um, it's a much of a black box,
Yep.
right? AI influences the way we speak right now. So we are actually preferring to sound right than actually be right.
Okay.
If you think about it. Yeah. So all these agendas that we have is about sounding right, not being right. And the worry I have is that we have not taught the Zoomers how to land, even though they're the most resourceful. I think my TEDx talk last year in September on this very subject sums it up. So, it's available on YouTube. You guys can go and look at it and watch that. But there's
Definitely.
one thing I said, that each generation has a specific role, but unless they can recognize that we are all different and our differences can be used as an advantage, you will never get the multi-generational cohesion that an organization needs today. And undoubtedly, 1 in 4 employees are already Gen Zs. And
Definitely.
Generation Alpha is only 6 years away to his first job. And we're still struggling with Z. How are we going to handle the Alpha, who's totally a different breed? So that's why I've worked very hard on this. Uh, Still, many organizations have not bought into it, and they're still complaining about productivity, cost of operations, AI investments not working, because it is not technology that comes first or operations that come first. It is people who come first. People create the plan. People create the culture. People give the workplace the vibe, the energy. People deliver the results. So if you are doing strategy, and right after your strategy, people is not the next thing you work on before you look at process, technology processes, and other resources, then you have missed the picture by a long mile. And I would say only 1% of the companies get it. Only one.
Okay.
Only 1%. Because in their strategic thing, the first thing they do is after strategy, they say, do we have the capabilities to deliver what we have just set up? I only see 1% of CEOs do that. Most CEOs says, okay, let's set the objective. Where do we want to go? We set the objective, and then we say, okay, how many people do we need? What technology do we need? We put out a technology, and they say, okay, how many full-time resources? Since we're spending so much money on technology, our cost base needs to come down. So we have to look at either not hiring next year, retraining our people. But who are we? We are training, retraining people at the end to adapt around technology, not the people who say, well, maybe we'll need this technology so
Okay.
that we can make life easier. It's the reverse.
Maybe we can try some other ways, which is much resourceful.
Yes, obviously.
Okay.
Very
So,
obviously.
yeah, in a world driven by approval and curated identities, is clarity becoming harder or necessary?
It's becoming harder, yet it is absolutely necessary,
Okay.
right? We sit in a world right now that is hugely divided across many perspectives. And there's nothing wrong because everybody is trying to say yes to themselves, right? But my question then is, have they realized the implications of who they're saying no to in the first place?
Okay.
Because when you say yes to something, you're going to say no to somebody else or something else, right? And it's always about making sure the headlines are correct. But what does the headline mean? What does a headline mean? So, does it really reflect where an organization, a community, a nation, or a society is heading? It's a big question. Everybody's got to ask themselves this. What is the future we are creating for the next generation of people who are watching every single decision we make? And I don't think there is a lack of accountability. It's a lack of standing up and accepting the responsibility for it. Being accountable, being held accountable is one thing, but being responsible is something that you come from within. People hold you accountable,
Yeah.
but you act responsibly. So, a question I asked many people who might be watching this podcast is, do you see people being held accountable, or are they actually more responsible? I mean, perceptions matter because what my perspective of responsibility is may be different. My perception of accountability is different. And in burning certain bridges that you have in finding clarity, you may come across as less responsible. But internally, do you know you have done the most responsible thing for what you have set out for yourself?
Okay.
And the key is less is more. Explain yourself, and if it's rejected, there is no need to explain yourself even further because you can only control what you can control. You cannot control what you cannot control. You cannot control another person's emotions, perceptions, what they choose to write, or what they choose to say about you. You can only focus on yourself. And so we see leaders, husbands, wives, families, elders, communities, business people. Everybody says things, but are they saying it responsibly? Do they understand what the ramifications are? They may not. They may be asked. It depends on the context of the question and the conversation. But it's very important to know the differentiation that, in order to be responsible, you must be clear about what you're saying. So it is really needed, right? Yet we don't see that remnants of it. It is absent in many spaces in our life.
Okay. Like the book talks about the burning bridges. So
Hmm.
not out of anger, but alignment. So how does
Hmm.
someone know the difference between these things?
You see, My late father used to say this very often.
Yeah.
There are two types of friends in your life: friends who will be there in your darkest moment of your life, and friends who are only there when you have a light on in your life. He used to call them good morning friends. Good to say good morning, good to say goodbye, but they are not friends. They will be nowhere to be seen. In fact, they won't even recognize you when you're when you need their help, or you count on them to be there, during a very tough period or even a joyous moment, right? So sometimes those are the bridges. Some people you have known for years, who you felt as a good friend, after a while you realize they've actually been leveraging on me for a while. They've been ungrateful, or they only are in it for themselves. You have to don't even you don't you have to stop saying good morning to them. You have to say goodbye.
Okay.
And that is not easy, because there comes the ramification, right? The outcome is this person will go say, look at these guys. He's so rude. Now, I've been his friend for 35 years. Now he says, he's too busy. He can't come for my daughter's wedding. He can't come for this. So these are things that are taken out of context. You've not gone because well, it's not part of, I don't have a relationship. And I found that I have been made use of. I want to walk away. And that obviously extends to that person's network, families, right? You're being invited, you turn them down. We live in the world where we say, oh, let's be nice and turn up. But is being nice to yourself or being nice to another person? Again, that perspective needs to be put in the right space. Is it worth your time to go there and do this? Is it worth the mental anguish having to stand there in an event which you absolutely don't relate yourself, now knowing that you have been taken for granted? So, yes, these are relationships you have to build, friendships, colleagues, family, right? And being Asian is very difficult because we are driven by family values. So to
Yeah.
do something like that takes a lot of courage. But I would say uh, you will find that you experience something profoundly refreshing if you do that, right? Profoundly refreshing. I speak from personal experience.
Got it. Okay, like, what does it truly mean to being stay alone or stay whole?
Sorry, can you
Uh,
repeat that
like,
question, Anuj?
what does it truly mean to be stay alone or stay whole?
Hmm. Well, I would use the word staying alone means not being lonely, yeah,
Yeah.
right? But guarding the very values and the parameters you've set in your journey. I mean, they become non-negotiables, right? When you set out when you've made a big change in your life and you're very clear about your goals, there are certain guardrails. I mean, they're not guardrails, there are certain values you hold very clearly, right? And and that in some of those values, you will be alone, but guard them, stay with them. They may be criticized, they may be scrutinized, you know. I'll give you an example of my work. I used to say yes to almost every client. Sometimes, even if I had to lower my financial value for that project. But after I pivoted, I began to say no to a number of clients, right? And they would turn around and say, it's only good for your business, it brings you money. I said, no, correct. It brings me money. But I just feel that you want a Mercedes Benz to operation, but you're willing to pay a Toyota price for it. I do not see anywhere in the world you can buy a Mercedes Benz for the price of a Toyota.
Yeah, that's a strong line.
So why should I lower my value? I would rather walk away from it. And hopefully, somebody who wants a Mercedes Benz will pay my Mercedes Benz fee. And there are people who would want a Mercedes Benz. So, I'm the service that we bring in the years of experience and the hard work we do from research I guard that, and I guard that with a certain value. Value is variable depending on the scope of work, but I guard what I have gained as being uniquely me, and that has a value. And I'm not willing to let that guard down. Sometimes you will end up alone because everybody says, look at him. He's made a very unwise decision by not taking up a contract. He's been asked for 25% discount. I said, well, my father didn't raise me up to give for me to lower my value by 25%. He would want me to raise my value by 25%. Our parents want us to do that,
Yeah, definitely.
right? Definitely. So why would I be going against that? And these are my values, they're innate in me. It's okay to say no. I don't feel guilty, no matter what happens. So I guard those as sacred now. And if the client isn't interested, I say, fine. Fine, you can find somebody else who will do the job. But I'm absolutely sure when I gave them the value in the initial phase, it is that of a Mercedes Benz. So if they want to have a Toyota, they can find a Toyota service and a Toyota consulting service. They get paid. No problem. If it helps them move the dial to where they want, fair enough. It's all right. But let's not forget, a Toyota will never become a Mercedes. A Mercedes can, on the other hand, function like a Toyota to someone. But a Toyota will never become a Mercedes.
Got it. Okay, so like one personal question to you, like has clarity ever cost you something significant, like which you
Boy,
regret
a-
or something?
absolutely, Anuj. My pivot last year cost me a lot in life. A lot. Uh, in terms of personal relationships, professional relationships, in terms of financial arrangements, in terms of my routine, my practices. Some of them were like 30 years, 40 years practice. I had to, you know, even, I will give you one thing. I've always been a person who thrives in crowds, right? And I still do. I mean, but right now I choose which networking events I want to go to. If the networking event has an alignment to what I'm doing, I'll go for it. In the past, I will attend almost every other networking event because I enjoyed being part of the crowd. Now, I'm all right being alone. I'm all right working from home. I'm all right working in a cafe by myself. I don't need to have, hey, call my friend up and say, are you free for coffee? Let's have a chat. I do not need that company anymore. So I can sit down in a place for hours by myself, get so much work done, think very clearly what I want, and not feel bored. And I think a person who can do that, any human being who can do that, they become dangerous, dangerously powerful in their clarity of thought. And there are many people like me out there, I know, who are like me. They don't need a crowd. They don't need validation. They know who they are. They have a value for it, and they're happy with that value. So yes, it has. I have paid some very significant price in life to be where I am, right? And no regrets whatsoever, I would say. In fact, it has been very refreshing, very liberating, and the amount of work I get done, have done so much, including writing that book. Right? I sat down, I wrote that book over 10 weeks. And all I did was commit to writing that book. And in order to write that book, I need to sit down alone for 10 weeks.
Okay, like I just lost the count of time as well. Like I was
Yes, sure.
just so lost in listening to you. Look, I have another question. Like if someone feels isolated, so just because they have chose the truth or the clarity, if you say,
Mm.
so what would you say to them?
Well, I would say this: the isolation that you feel at the initial stage should always be temporary. And if you feel isolated longer, then you're still not burnt enough. You still haven't given up enough collateral, right? You may need to seek the appropriate sort of help, and don't be afraid to ask for it. It could be a friend that you trust. You could be a psychologist. It could be a psychiatrist. It could be a counselor. It could be a teacher. It could be a former boss. It doesn't matter, right? Someone who trusts you trust. But isolation is only temporary. I knew that. So the feeling of isolation is only temporary. When you're going through the change, right? And you're trying to drive a discipline in that new habit, isolation does feel it. You go through a myriad of emotions because you are changing something that you haven't done in decades. Isolation is a natural symptom that you would see and suffer from, right? It's not the cause of it. It's not the outcome as well. But you would feel that, as a temporary symptom that you. But once you've come out of it, you would never feel isolated. You should not. If you do, then you have not yet burned that bridge. There's certain bridges you're hanging on to psychologically, which are affecting you. When you don't have it, you don't feel isolation.
Like
In
there
fact,
are, yeah.
you celebrate it.
So like there are a certain number of founders or CXOs, whatever is we say, like they are starting their businesses,
Mm.
but we can say, like they are still alone, like myself, if I say.
Mm.
So I sometimes
Yeah.
feel alone and working all the times in every sectors, we can say. So what should we do? Like, should we keep doing this thing till we reach somewhere, or should we like explore other options, or just be
You
alone?
see, so the goal is one, the journey is a different thing,
Yep.
right? So the goal, what is your goal? So the goal is as an entrepreneur, my goal is not, if someone sets a financial goal, that is wrong,
Right.
because the financial outcomes are a consequence of the work that you do. They cannot become the basis of the work that you do. Because I've heard people that said, I want $1 million. By the time they make $1 million, a million means nothing. So all of a sudden it becomes 10 million. All of a sudden so your goalpost keeps shifting, right? If like me, I just say, look, I'm here to bridge the multi-generational divide. I still believe it is there. As long as there are people being born every year, I have a job. As long as people are coming into the workforce or they're starting a side hustle, I have a job. I have a role to play in helping them see things clearly and making sure that when they encounter failure, they get up quickly instead of staying stuck to the ground. Because these people are the future of our civilization, right? Every person that we have read that has made a huge change in our community has, faced a lot of hurt. They have a lot of scars. Even us as corporate CEOs, we have a lot of scars. We don't show those scars. We don't talk about the scars very much because nobody is interested about your scars. Everybody is only interested about how quickly did you make this money? Observe the questions in a lot of your conferences that you enter
Yep.
and you participate in. No one is asking them about what are the scars they went through, what was the difficulty, because everybody only sees the tip of the iceberg. They don't see what's happening below the sea level. So as long as people are going towards that goal, I have a role to do. So I only believe one thing: I empower the multi generational dynamics just by focusing on telling the right story to the right people enough times. That is all I do every day. Let me tell the right story to the right people enough times. And as long as I'm focusing on that process and my behavior, my energy, my intention is aligned to that goal, everything else falls into place. The book is only one example, right? I have written a follow-up collaboration that looks at AI and the impact of AI on a multi-generational workforce, right, which will be released soon. I have written two books before that.
Okay.
I collaborated on two books, one which made also number one on Amazon. I was involved in speaking in a TEDx. I never wanted to become a TEDx speaker, but I was asked to come and participate and contribute because somebody saw the value. Because I was and that value only came to be known because I was saying the right story to the right people enough times. So if you believe in your goal, stick with it. You will find different journeys, right? So I found now journeys through social media. Besides the book is one, social media is another, my LinkedIn is another. Uh, I've expanded into looking at how AI can help me promote more, amplify my message a bit more, right? Because as a person, I can only work AI as a teammate, can amplify my message. So how do I leverage more of AI to amplify the message? So I've been using that extensively. So journey can be different, but your goal, you need to be absolutely clear where you want to go.
So one last question. This podcast. So if
Yeah.
if a reader closes this book in silence, so what is the one realization you hope that stays with them?
Well, I've never said Anuj, that's a very powerful question. I want to I want to flip that question back. I never wrote this book so that it would become a bestseller or, it was never my intention, although it did, you know, make it across seven categories of psychology on Amazon a couple of weeks. I mean, I think a couple of months ago. And I've written this very clearly in the book. If it helps you think and change one thing in your life, whether it's the way you look at something, whether you've changed the way you started to speak and communicate, whether it's the way you hug your children, whether it's the way you talk to your clients and your friends, the book has already done its job. So I didn't set it out as an expectation. But if it did help somebody see something differently, book's done its job. Right? So if someone closes the book and they're already thinking about something, book's done its job. If they've closed the book and they say, well, this is not my cup of tea at all. It was a good read, simple, easy read, 97 pages long. I say thank you to them because at least they bothered to read through 97 pages. It has still done its job. So this is what I say, detachment. I focused on the process of the messages in the book, not what it would create. It will create different implications and different experiences for a myriad of readers, and we've seen that in the reviews. But there are people who read the book and said and told me, Veejay, I hope I can write as concisely as you. Because whenever I set out to write a book, it's like 200 pages long because we have not been clear what exactly we want to say. When you find the clarity in what exactly you want to say and not about the consequence, but what you're feeling, you find that your book becomes. So there's a perception that if you write a 400, 300 page voluminous book, it is supposed to become a bestseller.
Got it.
Well, guess what? I wrote a book that is only 100 pages and it still made it there. I'm not saying that you should, but it is the content and the quality of the content and the context in which you write that is far more important than the volume of what you write.
Sure.
You don't
So
have to speak right. You don't have to sound right. You have to be right.
definitely, sir. I would agree with that. So thank you so much, sir, for having this conversation with us. So
No,
anybody who is Yeah. So anybody who is watching this podcast or listening on your Spotify, so you can just go to the description. All the links are there. You can just go and check out the book by yourself and leave a review or feedback to sir, so that he should know like what are the changes or what are the things you are looking for. And I will also attach Vijay sir's LinkedIn and Instagram, so you can just go and give him your personal feedback or ask some enlightenment if you need one. So thank you so much, sir, for joining
Well,
us.
Anuj, just to add
Yeah,
one more thing to what you said, which is very very kind of you. I would only encourage the readers, if you have benefited from the book,
Yeah.
please, even in some way, please pay that good deed forward by just telling your friends about it, because it is also your way of telling of extending my goal of telling the right story to the right people enough times. So please pay the deed forward. I would encourage you to do that if you have benefited from the book. It is, if you have Kindle Unlimited, the book's obviously free. I made this free basically so that young people can gain access to it. Reading is a dying art. It is not something that is being extensively used in a world where the attention span is now 5 seconds, thanks to social media. But it is a short and easy book with a lot of frameworks, a lot of questions, and if you benefited, please share it, share that knowledge. That's all I ask of the viewers of the podcast and those that who eventually go on to read the book. Thank you, Anuj.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much, sir, for joining this podcast and having a beautiful conversation with us. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you,